before we can get deep into like the lessons and all of those different things, we have to break down a couple of different things. Challenges that we see in a lot of marriages, misconceptions we see with marriages, and then we also want to break down the purpose of marriage and a couple of things that go along with that. Because all those lessons won't matter if we don't kind of break down what marriage actually is. Because most people really don't understand it. And honestly, I really didn't understand it, and I've been together with my wife for 25 years, but married for 17. I didn't understand like fully marriage probably until 4 years ago. And not that our beginning or most of our marriage was bad or anything. I just didn't think I really understood life and marriage until about that time. And it's wild because we had a pretty good marriage, but there's so much more. But that's why I pray for wisdom, knowledge, and love. That's why I ask God to tell me great and unsearchable things, because He's revealing so much to me about marriage. And this is where a lot of people miss the boat in marriage. They come together, and what's hard about it is when you get married, there's no playbook, there's no instruction owner's manual. Like you buy a car, it comes with an owner's manual. You buy a toaster, it comes with an owner's manual. You get married, and it's like, hey, good luck, and you don't really know. And so, who you get your advice from and who you get your example from typically is our parents first, of watching their marriages. And most of them probably have a lukewarm to mediocre marriage. I've rarely have seen a 10 out of 10 marriages out of even people who had pretty good marriages. But I don't know about you guys. I ain't trying to have pretty good in life. And not that doesn't what God wants for us either. But if you've seen a bad example of a marriage, then that's going to show you what marriage is like. And you just think everybody has that. In the society we live in today, most people have a mediocre or bad marriage because, as you know, divorce rate is at 50% right now. But the studies say if that the other 50% that are still married, only there's 35% of that are in an unhappy marriage. So there's only a stat of 15% of couples that are in an actual happy marriage, which is wild to think about, right? So you're really getting shown 85% of bad marriages out there by most of the people you see. So imagine that 85% of the people you see every day have a bad marriage. That's crazy to think about. And so who are you getting your input from? So maybe those people aren't married. Maybe you're getting it from single people. So most of the people just aren't giving you the right things, what it really is. And so no wonder people are struggling. But when you really understand what marriage is, not only biblically, well, mainly biblically, but also how it transfers down is huge. Then you can actually advance together. So I wanted to frame that first and foremost for you to before we get deeper into this. Marriage, we're going to break a lot of stigmas here, and a lot of the things that we teach are going to challenge you and grow you in a lot of different ways, because you're going to think to yourself, well, society maybe doesn't talk that way, or my parents didn't model that way for me, or I don't know, we don't do that in our marriage. And that's exactly why you're here. Even if you have a good marriage and you're looking to get great, or maybe you have a great marriage and looking to get to phenomenal, right? Like there's always growth. And that's where God's put me and my wife here to show and model and be possibility for others what a phenomenal marriage is. Like literally, we're the Michael Jordan of marriages. And that's not me being egotistical. It's the truth. It's literally the truth. Have not argued in 10 years. Intimacy only gets better and better. Our laughter, our fun, our communication only better and better. We spend insane amount of hours together every day and just can't get enough of each other. So I promise you, it's there. Now, I can't say I'm a Michael Jordan at working on cars or playing basketball or anything like that. I'm not. Maybe that's you. But marriage, that's me. And leadership, that's me. Like I know what I'm talking about in these areas. And it's all been confirmed by God and shown by God. So, with that being said, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole too much. So I'm going to talk about the challenges that people see in in marriages, right? First, what I see in so a lot of marriages, when you get married or after a little while, you stop putting in effort. This is so many people. They think that a wedding ring is a participation trophy and not a trophy that you actually have to go and win every single day. Every single day, you have to show up and win. Just yesterday, I saw a video of Kobe Bryant, and this is for basketball, but he was on the dream team. You guys remember the dream team? And it was so cool because all of his teammates were in this reel and they were saying, man, we had played late one night and, all of us went out to the club and we're partying. And these were already all the all-stars of the league. It was like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, like a bunch of other amazing players. And they're like, we were coming back to the hotel at 5:30 in the morning. And we get to the lobby, and the only person that didn't come out and party with us that night was Kobe. But when we get to the lobby, Kobe was in the lobby and he was already covered in sweat because he had already got up at that morning and went to the gym and worked out. Well, that's why he was better than all of those other players. And eventually it transferred over to those other people because we got to do things that stand out. You got to win it every day. He had already won championships. He had already won MVPs. Why was he getting up early and continuing to do that? Because he continued to want to grow who he was for his family, to inspire, to lead, and all of that stuff. You keep winning it. And that's the same thing in our marriage. We need to show up every single day and win. Like it's you're trying to win their love. Like to a certain extent, like you're trying to fall in love, deeper in love. Most people are just like, well, I already got married, so I've already won the title, so I don't need to put in effort anymore. I've already got it. No, no. That could not be the farthest from the truth. That's why people gain weight. That's why they stop communicating. That's why they start yelling at each other. That's why they stop spending time together. That's why I do all of that. You must put in effort like it's end all be all every day. Like it's the first date. Like you're courting them like that. It's wild. So, anyways, I don't want to go too deep on all these. So most people don't put in effort. Secondly, people don't really truly know each other because they stop doing the putting in effort. They don't spend the quality time together. They're doing life together, as in paying the bills, living and raising kids, but they're not actually getting to know each other. That's something I've worked with couples who've been married for a couple of years, and I've worked with couples who've been married 20 plus years. And the same thing in most of those couples is they don't really know each other. Is that yes, they've seen each other naked, they know their past history and stuff, but they don't know what's going on in their head, in their heart, in the present day. They don't know because nobody shares. That's another thing I see. Number three, a lot of people think about, well, it's all about me. Like, what's in this for me? They're not doing this to make me happy. Me. That's not marriage either. It really isn't. If you're always in it, if you're in it, what's in it for me? And your spouse is what's in it for me? Who do you think's ever giving, right? But it becomes you actually gain when you give to the other person. It's like at Christmas, why we like giving Christmas presents better than getting them. And if you like getting gifts better than giving them, you got to check yourself because there's something wrong in your heart. So when we give presents, it feels amazing, right? Because we're giving to them. So that's the next one. Um, they need the other to complete them. That's a big problem with it. They need the other person to complete them. And you have to be enough in yourself. You really, really do have to be enough in yourself. And when you do that, it becomes special. I'm just going to tell one quick, you probably heard me say this before. I'm going to run through this story real quick. But a while back, me and Diane were coaching and we were saying this one thing. And I was passionate, I was fired up. And I was saying, me and Diane really have a 10 out of 10 marriage, like literally the best marriage I've ever seen. And I don't need her. Said that in a stone cold face. And she says, and I don't need him. But because we're enough in ourselves and whose we are, that's why we're good. She makes it better, but I don't need her. When you need them, that's a dangerous place because you will break your character. You will feel, but put all the control into their happiness for you and all of that stuff. And then if they're not doing those things, it's wild. So you have to be enough in yourself. And because of that, you just want to love on them and they just want to love on you because it's not like putting expectations and pressure on each other. So you have to be enough in yourself and you don't need them to complete you. They just make you better. They make you better because it's not out of need, it's out of desire. Um, Most couples don't have a similar vision. That's a big one. The husband's like, well, I want to grow the business and I want to go do this, this, and this. And that's why I'm working so hard and working all these hours so we can do this, this, and this and buy this house and then go on this trip. It's all his. The spouse maybe doesn't care about any of that stuff. And so then she's frustrated. I promise you, that's a big problem in marriage because then there's resentment. The husband doesn't feel respected because he's working so hard. And then the wife doesn't feel seen or heard because he's not there spending the time with her. And they're pulling in different directions. You have to have a similar vision. We're going to cover this in a whole lesson. The next one, they fall in love for their strengths, but get annoyed by them when they have to live with them. So normally when we're falling in love with somebody, we're like, I love that they're alpha. Like a female would be like, I love that they're an alpha leader. I love all of that. And then the husband's like, I love that she's detailed and this, and this, and does all of that. Well, when they get married and then all of a sudden you're like really, really annoyed because She might want to stick to the schedule day in, day in, boom, 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 and it's not flexible or whatnot. And you're always out there just freaking alpha, decisive. Let's go. Come on, let me know right now what you want and all this stuff. And maybe that's not her personality. And then people have at the beginning, that's awesome because the other person has something you don't have and you admire it in both ways. But then when you have to live under the roof together, it starts getting annoying. Now we'll have a whole lesson on how to do that, combine that, and have those strengths, your weaknesses, things you don't have, you grow them and complement each other in those, and then you can get them all. And it'll only help each other. But most people fall in love for one reason, but that same reason is the thing that annoys them eventually later on. They don't spend enough time together. I already talked about that one. So many couples do not spend enough time together. And we're going to break this down in the love languages and things like that. I like love languages, but they're very surface level, very JV, very amateurish. Do not just lean on those because that means very little. There's so much above it. And one of those is you have to have quality time as your number one. Um, they're not best friends. And because of that quality time, they're not best friends. I literally can't wait to spend time with Diane. That was not the case. For many years, I wanted to hang out with my coworkers before I did this. I wanted to hang out with my coworkers, my friends. I wanted to watch sports. I wanted to go ride my bike. I wanted to do all these other things with everybody else but Diane because she wasn't that interesting. We hadn't put any effort into finding comparable things that we wanted to do. She was no on trying new things. And I was frustrated that she wouldn't. And then so I was just like, oh, whatever, I'll do my own. You have to become best friends. Like literally, we became best friends. We're gonna break down that. How do you do this in this lesson as well? But that's what I want to see. People are not best friends, and then sometimes in marriages get to a rocky spot. They start thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. It's not. God brought you guys together for a reason. You are just having to go through this spot in your life to grow together, to get to these spots, to become one. I promise you that is so important for people to do that is you must become to become one. The issues that you're having in your marriage right now, if you were just to leave the marriage right now, you would have those same exact issues in the next marriage because at first, like I said, you would see their strengths and you'd be like, that's awesome. But as soon as you get past that time and you've been together a long time, those things are going to start annoying you. I promise you it will happen again and again. And so your same issues won't be fixed. You'll bring those same problems to the next person and they will eventually annoy that next person as well. It is not greener on the other side. I promise you. Fix the marriage you're in. It'd be like being at a theme park and getting tired of waiting in line to get to the front. And you're like, I'm going to this other ride. Well, when you get to the other line, guess what? You're in the back of the line of that ride and going to have to wait to the front of that one. Might as well stay in the line and get to the front. That's what this is, but you got to do the work. And so that's what I see so much of people that are having challenges in the marriage. So before I move on, I'm going to go through just some of the purposes of marriage real quick, pound them out right here. Number one, the purpose of marriage is to become one because when two become one, guess what happens? You're both pulling stronger in the same direction. There's a true story of a horse. One type of horse is a Belgian horse. By itself, it pulls 8,000 pounds. So together with another horse, how much weight can it pull? 16, you would say, right? Actually, you're wrong. It's 20,000 pounds. But here's the caveat to that. Not only is it 20,000 pounds, so they're pulling more together than they can, even more than just double. That's when horses don't know each other. When they actually get to know each other, which I'm telling you, most couples do not know each other, guess what you think happens? It pulls 30,000 pounds. It goes from pulling 8,000 by itself to 30 together because once they get trained and know together, they can pull even more in the same direction. But then that's when you become best friends. That's when you spend quality time. That's when you have the same vision and all of that. That's the purpose of marriage. And you will take so much territory in advance for God and his kingdom because it's not about your happiness. It's about your holiness. Remember that marriage is about your holiness and not your happiness. That's what it's there for because God created marriage very early on in the Bible, in the creation. So it's about your holiness, but that holiness will eventually bring you joy. And that's better than happiness. Happiness will come with it. That's what I found. The more holy I get in my marriage, in my life, the more joy and happiness I feel. But the more I tried to seek the joy and happiness first, the less I actually got. And it just hurt everything else in my life. So it's crazy. You actually, when you're by seeking that holiness and becoming that, you actually do get it. But when it's just when you got them out of order, that it doesn't happen. Um, You have to be, I'm going to touch on this a little bit in setting the standard, but be different together. You have to stand out together and show what's possibility. When you two become one, you'll stand out. And when your couple stand out, what it is going to encourage other people. As I told you, the problem is that most people don't know how to have a good marriage. Imagine what that is when you have a phenomenal marriage, how you'll be able to help so many other people, how you're going to be able to show that to your kids. And by modeling that to your kids, amazing things happen. I'm going to touch deeper on this later. The next one is a great marriage takes two, obviously, but it starts with one. Don't ever think, well, she's not doing it. He's not doing it. No, it's always on you. That's why you must go through the high level husband course first before this one, because you'll understand extreme ownership. I'm going to win no matter what, whether Diane's on board or not. I'm going to win. And our marriage got to the place where it's at, not because of Diane, but because I started to take in those ropes, and Diane did eventually start getting vulnerable, having courage in her life and developing all of those things. And then we had a phenomenal marriage. But it really started because I took the action and led the way and had extreme ownership and took the blame on all the other things. If you're pointing the fingers, you're putting all the control in their hands. I promise you, it starts with you. This is why this course comes after the high level husband, or later down the line, the high level wife program. So you must start with that. It always starts with you. I promise you. You have to implement and do all the things in the high level husband program. You have to master that stuff first before this matters. Because if you try to start with all this stuff, it's going to be hard because you haven't mastered yourself over here. Then you're going to bring an empty cup over here. Is it good to know this stuff? Sure. But it will be very hard to implement this stuff if you haven't become the high level husband or a high level wife. You have to come those first. That's why it starts with one to get it over here to this. That's why we do it that way. It has to start with you, because if you're broken, if you're hurting, if you're not disciplined, if you're not seeing yourself, if you have all these limitations and all these things, then you come to a marriage and you're expecting it. That's why you need them to complete you. That's why all these problems are happening. That's why it starts here and then transfers here. Please remember that. So just take note of those challenges and take note of what marriage actually is. Let this sit in before you go on to the next thing. I want you to pray on this. I want you to sit there in silence and think about this. And I want it to set in. I promise you, every time before I do these lessons, I pray for God to let his intention shine and not mine, and let his words be my word. Believe me, if you saw how much effort I put into God, he speaks to me and he will to you as well. This is my area of expertise, and I know what I'm talking about. I've watched this thing work time and time again. So please do not just take this knowledge in and then move on to the next and forget it. You have to let this soak in. So much love.